fog rolls in thick over the southern coast of England, embracing the silhouette of Portsmouth naval base in a shroud of wartime intrigue. Beneath this veil, deep within an underground bunker, sealed from prying eyes, a woman sits in quiet strength. Her breath is steady, her hands poised in her lap. Though she cannot see the candlelight flickering across the damp stone walls, she feels its warmth. She feels everything. It is 1942. The world is aflame with conflict. Above ground, the sky is alive with bombers and the roar of anti-aircraft fire. Below, in this hidden sanctuary, another force stirs. Her name remains unspoken beyond these walls. Officially, she is invisible. Yet to those who have listened to her voice crackling through classified transmissions, to the few officers who have witnessed ghostly figures emerge in the smoke-filled air of her seances, she is known by a different name. The Oracle. She speaks in whispers, sometimes in gasps, often taking on voices not her own. Names, coordinates, dates, submarines yet to be discovered, crewmen whose deaths remain unknown to their families. Each word she utters aligns perfectly with future records. Records confirmed months later, when sonar scans validated her insights in real time. How? That question resonates within the hallowed halls of Whitehall. It follows Churchill's most secret unit into the war room, where maps are marked not just with troop movements, but with the locations of spirits guiding her. Intelligence that transcends reason, that wins battles, that shatters the limits of conventional warfare. For if the dead can guide the living, steering torpedoes away, illuminating the paths of U-boats concealed beneath the Atlantic, what else might be achievable? And if adversaries ever discovered this truth, what lengths would they go to halt it? A new kind of warfare unfolds here, in the shadows, among the echoes of the drowned. Not fought with rifles or radar, but with faith, fear, and the desperate hope that death is not the ultimate end. Yet, secrets like these yearn for the light of day. She was never meant to be seen, not by the public, not by history. Yet, in the depths of wartime Britain, when the nation stood on the brink of despair, she became a ghost within a ghost war. Her name was known only to a select few, marked in the files as Project Vesper. To those who attended the sessions beneath Portsmouth Naval Base, she was known simply as the Oracle. Blindfolded and bound not by chains but by silence, she sat in her candlelit chamber, her voice trembling, as it gave voice to those long silenced. Sailors lost at sea spoke through her lips. Submarines destined to vanish resurfaced in her words. Secrets, military, sacred, unspeakable, flowed from her like ink into water. Above ground, amidst the chaos of war, men in dark uniforms listened, intently. They took notes, cross-referencing sonar readings with whispered coordinates. Time and again they uncovered what she described. Churchill's most secret unit lacked an official name, yet their mission was profound. To seek every advantage, no matter how extraordinary, even if it stemmed from beyond the veil. They designated it Project Vesper, a classified initiative, buried beneath layers of deception, standing alongside Ultra and the double agents who misled Hitler with false intelligence. But this was fundamentally different. This was communion. The transcripts remain sealed. Declassified logs reference channeled intelligence reports, filed under strict confidentiality. Some reports redirected convoys away from U-boat, wolf packs. Others pinpointed enemy positions before radar could detect them. How could a blind medium, with no access to radio, no military clearance, and no formal education beyond primary school, know such things? This question haunted MI5 and divided intelligence officers. Some believed she was a conduit, while others deemed her a fraud. Yet the results remained undeniable. One report, dated January 1944, stated, "Subject continues to reveal classified information with no apparent source. Investigation into possible contacts with naval or intelligence personnel has revealed no significant links." Given the popularity of her seances among military families, the potential for security compromise remains high. So they acted, not as spies, nor as scientists, but as wardens of reality itself. In the dead of night, police stormed the underground bunker, Lights flared and voices fell silent. She was taken, not for treason or espionage, but for witchcraft. The Witchcraft Act of 1735, long dormant, was resurrected like the very spirits she claimed to channel. Why? There was no other law that fit. No statute for a woman who conversed with the drowned and moved the living with her insights. Thus began the trial of the last witch in England, a chilling testament to what happens when reason confronts the impossible. She sat in the soft glow of candlelight, enveloped in a stillness that seemed to amplify her purpose. The air, rich with the scent of wax and stone, pulsed with the weight of possibility. Above, the chaos of war raged on. Bombs fell, ships sank, and secrets were fiercely protected. But in this hidden chamber, the war was fought on a different plane, one where the living sought guidance from the dead, and the price of knowledge was a journey into the abyss of the unknown. Her name was never uttered beyond these walls. To the world, she was unseen. But in this chamber, she was essential. Each session took its toll. Her body often convulsed, her face contorted, as if battling unseen forces for control of her voice, her mind. A tremor ran through her as she took a deep breath, gathering her resolve. Then the voice emerged, not entirely her own. Low and urgent, it carried truths across vast distances and into undiscovered depths. Sometimes it was a guttural whisper, sometimes a desperate plea, sometimes a clear, commanding tone that left the hardened officers in the room unnerved. He says he went down near Iceland. Coordinates 59 degree and 20 degree. There are others still, trapped below. The officers listened intently, jotting down notes and cross-referencing. Their faces, usually stoic masks of military discipline, often betrayed a flicker of awe, or perhaps a growing fear. For with her guidance, they unearthed submarines lost without a trace, sailors whose sacrifices remained unrecorded, their final moments revealed with chilling precision. How could a blind medium possess such knowledge? The question became an obsession for some, a terrifying anomaly for others. She had no maps, no radios, no access to decrypted messages. Her information came from whispers in the dark. It wasn't espionage. There was no evidence of deceit. Some sessions were staged, yes, to appease the curious or to deflect suspicion, but others shimmered with the unexplainable. These were the sessions that left the air heavy, the officers pale, and the maps in the war room suddenly alive with impossible truth. Thus, the government turned to a law older than logic, older than reason. They invoked the Witchcraft Act of 1735, not out of belief in curses or pacts with the devil, but because her extraordinary gift transcended existing statutes. They couldn't charge her as a spy, for she served their side. They couldn't dismiss her as a fraud, for her words saved lives. So they chose the only path left, to declare her very existence and her uncanny abilities illegal. In January 1944, amid the raid, lights blazed and hands pulled her from the trance. She was taken, not for treason or espionage, but for the power she wielded. A crime from centuries past, resurrected in modern times. A desperate act against an inexplicable power. The war had transformed Britain into a landscape of resilience and unity. Every city, every village, every street bore the weight of its collective sorrow. Husbands lost at sea, sons missing in action, brothers who vanished amidst the smoke of distant battlefields. The casualty lists grew longer, and with them, the desperate longing for closure, for a final word, for some confirmation that their loved ones were not simply gone. Yet, amid the darkness, whispers emerged of a woman who offered more than just prayers. A medium who didn't merely speak about the dead, but brought them back. Not in metaphor, not in memory, but in voice, in form, in details so precise that even the most hardened skeptics found themselves moved. To a nation drowning in grief, she offered a lifeline, a fleeting reunion with the lost. Her name was Helen Duncan. To the government, she posed a challenge. Her public seances, though separate from her classified work, often yielded startlingly accurate information that could potentially compromise military operations if the source of such intelligence were ever linked to her. The sheer popularity of her abilities, the public's fascination with the supernatural during a time of such profound loss, made her a massive security risk in their eyes. To grieving families, she became a beacon of hope. Her fame spread like wildfire among the ordinary people, a last resort for those clutching at straws of hope in a world consumed by death. And to history, she was destined to become something else entirely, the last witch tried in England. In 1944, as Allied forces prepared for D-Day, an extraordinary struggle unfolded. Not on the front lines, but within courtrooms and intelligence offices. A battle not against Nazis or spies, but against the unknown. In that moment, the British government made a bold choice. They reached for an ancient law, one last invoked when witches still burned, and they pointed it at Helen Duncan. On March 23, 1944, as Allied forces prepared for the imminent invasion of Normandy, an extraordinary legal spectacle unfolded at the Old Bailey, London's Central Criminal Court. Helen Duncan, a spirited 47-year-old Scottish woman, stood in the dock accused of violating the Witchcraft Act of 1735, a piece of legislation few legal scholars even realized was still in force. The prosecution, led by barrister John Maude, didn't claim she flew on broomsticks or cast curses. The medieval notions of witchcraft were gone. Instead, she was accused of pretending to summon the spirits of the dead, a modern twist on an ancient law. Sir Gerald Dodson, the presiding judge, made his position clear from the outset. This court is not concerned with whether the spirits of the dead can or cannot communicate with the living. The question is whether the accused attempted to deceive the public into believing she could. The trial lasted 7 days, an unusually long period for an apparently minor case, particularly during wartime. More than 40 witnesses were called, an impressive number that included both supporters and critics of Helen. Among those who testified in her defense were respectable individuals who shared profound experiences of recognizing deceased relatives materialized during her seances. One man, with a trembling voice, described how his late mother appeared and called him by a cherished childhood nickname that only she knew. A war widow recounted how her husband appeared with specific details about his death, details that she would only officially confirm weeks later. The sworn testimony of such credible citizens rocked the very foundations of the court. As philosopher C.E.M. Joad noted in a contemporary article, either we must conclude that dozens of people are collectively committing perjury, or that our understanding of reality must make room for currently inexplicable phenomena. The prosecution focused on discrediting Helen's mediumistic phenomena. A pivotal moment came when experts demonstrated how gauze soaked in egg white could simulate ectoplasm, an accusation made by Harry Price years earlier. Spiritualist physician Dr. Nandor Fodor, who extensively studied materialization phenomena, later wrote, "The question is not whether some mediums resort to fraud when their powers fail, many do, but whether all observed phenomena can be explained by such methods." The most compelling cases from Duncan's seances involve manifestations that could hardly be replicated by simple sleight of hand. The trial also revealed authorities' hesitation to address questions of national security directly. While speculation abounded regarding the government's true concern over Helen's ability to reveal classified military information, this aspect was never openly discussed. Prime Minister Winston Churchill reportedly dismissed the case in private as medieval nonsense. Historian Sonu Shamdasani remarked, "The trial epitomizes a moment when the British legal and military establishment confronted a phenomenon that didn't fit into existing categories of threat. Unable to prosecute her as a spy without evidence of enemy contact, they turned to an archaic law that offered some mechanism for containing what they perceived as danger. As the trial unfolded, it became evident that the case transcended the guilt of a single medium. It became a referendum on the limits of scientific knowledge, on the relationship between the state and unconventional spiritual practices, and on the very essence of reality." On April 3, 1944, after only 30 minutes of deliberation, the jury returned its verdict. Guilty. Helen Duncan was sentenced to 9 months in Holloway Prison, a surprisingly harsh penalty for a non-violent offense, especially during wartime. The verdict ignited immediate controversy. Maurice Barbanel, editor of the spiritualist newspaper Psychic News, proclaimed, "Today, the British state has declared illegal the fundamental belief of spiritualism, that the dead can communicate with the living. Millions of spiritualists now find themselves technically in violation of the law simply for practicing their religion." The Spiritualist National Union organized protests, asserting that the verdict amounted to religious persecution, and a petition with thousands of signatures was sent to the Home Office requesting Helen's release. Helen served her sentence with dignity. According to reports, a fellow inmate later revealed that even the prison guards often consulted Helen about deceased loved ones. After her release in 1945, with the war already over, she vowed to continue her mediumistic work, a promise she kept until her death in 1956. Paradoxically, the trial that sought to silence Helen Duncan ended up turning her into a martyr for the spiritualist cause, and secured her place in history as the last person convicted of witchcraft in England. The case also hastened the repeal of the Witchcraft Act, which was finally replaced by the Fraudulent Mediums Act in 1951, a law that clearly distinguished between deliberate fraud and genuine religious practice. The trial of Helen Duncan remains a powerful reminder of how even in societies that consider themselves rational and enlightened, the fear of the unknown can resurrect deeply rooted repressive impulses. After her release from Holloway Prison in 1945, Helen Duncan emerged not only as a free citizen, but as a living symbol of the tension between dominant scientific materialism and the enduring esoteric traditions at the heart of modernity. Far from abandoning her mediumistic practices after the trauma of trial and imprisonment, Helen resumed her work with renewed determination. Those who have crossed the veil between worlds and returned can rarely be content with the limitations of a purely material perspective, wrote the mystic Thomas Marin. This observation seems to perfectly capture Helen Duncan's post-trial trajectory. In the following years, she conducted hundreds of seances across Britain, now a celebrity in the international spiritualist world. Her demonstrations attracted even larger crowds. Ironically, the trial that aimed to discredit her had significantly amplified her fame. Manly P. Hall, renowned scholar of the occult, observed, "In the history of esoteric traditions, persecution often serves as an involuntary form of validation. When powerful institutions mobilize against an individual who claims to access knowledge beyond the accepted paradigm, it paradoxically suggests that this individual poses a threat precisely because there is something genuine in their claims." In November 1956, the final chapter in Helen Duncan's extraordinary life unfolded. During a séance in Nottingham, the police once again raided the location where she was conducting a mediumistic demonstration. Though this time authorities invoked the newer Fraudulent Mediums Act, the pattern of persecution was painfully familiar. Witnesses reported that Helen, in a deep trance at the moment of the raid, suffered a severe shock when officers attempted to seize the supposed ectoplasm. She suffered a crisis that resulted in internal bleeding. 5 weeks later, on December 6, 1956, Helen Duncan died at the age of 59. At her funeral, renowned journalist and spiritualist Hannah Swafford declared, "Helen Duncan gave her life for the truth of spiritualism, just as surely as any religious martyr in history." Beyond biographical narrative, the case of Helen Duncan continues to resonate in contemporary esoteric studies for several profound reasons. One of them is the still unanswered question: how did she acquire information she seemingly could not have known? Dr. Dean Radin, a researcher of psi phenomena at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, proposes, "Historical cases like Helen Duncan compel us to consider the possibility of non-local modes of information access. Quantum mechanics has shown that particles can be entangled and influence each other instantly across vast distances. Perhaps consciousness operates under similar principles that we do not yet fully understand." This perspective echoes psychiatrist Carl Jung's writings on synchronicity, events seemingly connected without a discernible causal link, and his theory of the collective unconscious as a repository of shared memory and experience. Researcher Rupert Sheldrake, with his theory of morphic fields, suggests individuals who are particularly sensitive may, in altered states of consciousness, access information fields that transcend conventional limits of time and space. What we call mediumship may be a natural though rare form of connection with these fields. Perhaps the deepest lesson of Helen Duncan's case is that the boundaries between the possible and the impossible, the natural and the supernatural, are not fixed, but culturally determined and historically contingent. As philosopher Michel Foucault noted, every era has its regime of truth, systems of power that sanction certain types of knowledge while relegating others to obscurity. In that context, individuals like Helen Duncan serve as liminal figures, occupying spaces between conceptual worlds, defying easy categorization, and pointing to possibilities that our dominant paradigms struggle to accommodate. Decades after her death, as emerging fields like quantum physics, consciousness studies, and anomaly research continue to expand our understanding of the possible, the extraordinary case of Helen Duncan, the last person convicted under a witchcraft law in England, remains a powerful reminder of the mysteries that still lie at the heart of human experience. As the famous occultist Dion Fortune once wrote, "Magic is the art of causing changes in consciousness according to will." Seen through this lens, perhaps Helen Duncan's true legacy lies not so much in her supposed gift of speaking with the dead, but in her ability to challenge the boundaries of conventional thought, inviting us to consider realities beyond the narrow confines of the scientific materialism that dominates our age. What do you believe? Was Helen Duncan a genuine conduit for wartime secrets, a master illusionist, or something entirely beyond our current understanding? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this dive into the unknown fascinated you, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more untold histories.